Hello, hope you're doing okay today. Today's lesson is on hydrothermal vents and cold seeps. It's not going to be a very long lesson, but there is a good deal of information here. So if you need to take notes, please feel free to do so. Rewatch the video as you need. So a couple of questions to get us started today. Number one, what provides energy for all living things on land and most animals near the surface of the ocean? This should take us back to thinking about some of the things that we've already studied. And if you're thinking correctly, then you're probably saying to yourself, the answer to this question is photosynthesis. Okay, so the process of photosynthesis is what does it, but what provides that energy? In the process of photosynthesis, where do we get the energy from? We get the energy from the sun. So sunlight provides energy for all living things on land and most animals that live in the ocean. The process is photosynthesis, but what about the animals in the deepest part of the ocean, the aphotic zone? The aphotic zone. At this point on Wednesday, you've probably done some or all of your ocean zones assignments. So you're already familiar with the euphotic zone, which is the sunlit zone. And then the dysphotic zone, which is that twilight zone where there's just enough light to see, but there's not enough light to do photosynthesis. And then the aphotic zone where it's drenched in darkness. There is no light there except for any chemical light that is produced through bioluminescence. So below the euphotic zone, that's the sunlit zone, the upper reaches of the ocean, many microbes, that would be things like bacteria, viruses, euglena, parameciums, things like that. A microbe is something that's microscopic that we can't see. There are many microbes that have evolved chemosynthesis. Chemosynthesis. That's basically the same process as photosynthesis. The difference is where in photosynthesis, let's do our word mapping, break the word apart. Photo meaning light, right? Chemosynthesis is making energy from chemicals. Chemo, right. So instead of photosynthesis, all of these microbes down there in the dysphotic and the aphotic zones use chemosynthesis to create sugars. Now in photosynthesis, it's actually cellular respiration is where they break the sugar down to get the energy out. In cellular respiration, oxygen is used to break down what? It's the other side of the photosynthesis equation. So oxygen breaks down sugar to create energy, but to make food, that's the sugar, photosynthesis takes water and carbon dioxide. Well, in chemosynthesis, it takes in oxygen from the seawater, and then it uses hydrogen sulfides, methanes, basically hydrocarbon, again, word parts here, carbons in water, hydrocarbon, or carbons that have water attached to them. So it takes these hydrogen sulfides, these methanes, these hydrocarbons, and it breaks them down into usable food for the microbes and then for the other animals that live in the area. There are two ways this is done, or two places this is done. One is called a hydrothermal vent. The other is called a cold seep. We're going to talk about the difference in just a minute. But chemosynthesis done by microbes actually helps things like clams, mussels, snails, and shrimp that eat those microbes. And then, of course, bigger fish and predators eat on those clams, mussels, and snails. Clams and mussels specifically, and even some shrimp, have been found in some of these areas that are very, very harsh. There are also tube worms in some shrimp that have chemosynthetic microbes. That's the microbes that do chemosynthesis. on their body or in their body. So they're basically providing a place for the microbe to live in exchange for the nutrients that it produces. So that's kind of the process of chemosynthesis. Now, as I said, there's two different places where these things happen. One is called cold seep. The other is called a hydrothermal vent. They differ from each other in a couple of ways. First of all, their name should tell you something. Seeps and vents, that both means stuff's coming out of the earth. And then cold seep, it means that the stuff that's coming out of the earth is cold. Hydrothermal vents are vents that are in the ocean where water is shooting out of these vents. Thermal tells you that the water is probably very hot, right? So that's how they're different and how they're alike. And because of the situation of each one, different animals can survive in different areas. So let's talk specifically about hydrothermal vents. Hydrothermal vents are driven by heat from volcanoes that are below the ocean's surface. So you've got the volcano below the ocean's floor. It's heating the water up that's inside of the crust. And then it gets so hot that it has to squirt out somewhere, and it blows holes in the ocean floor, these vents, and it shoots out all the water and all of the nasty chemicals that are all part of the volcano, and creates these tower-like chimneys that are just blowing hot water and acid and all this other stuff out of this vent. Well, the heat causes the nutrients and the chemicals to punch through the ocean floor. Temperatures can be as high as 752 degrees Fahrenheit, 400 degrees Celsius. So it's extremely hot. If you think that water normally boils at 212 degrees here on the surface of the planet, you have to also remember that this part of the planet, because it's on the ocean floor, the water pressure is extremely high, which then raises the boiling point of the water extremely high, because water pressure on the water can change the boiling point. So you've got 752 degree water shooting out of these chimneys. Well, humans can't survive there. Okay, so this is a picture of a submersible that's used to research these hydrothermal vents. It doesn't look very big, right? There's a lot of metal. There's one little round window right in the middle. In reality, it's about 2 inches across or 3 inches across. And it's very thick glass because of the amount of pressure. If that glass were to break, this entire machine would just implode or explode. So they've got all this metal that's protecting the 2 or 3 guys that are in it, or 2 or 3 scientists that are in it, male or female. Protecting the scientists that are in it, number one, from the pressure, because the pressure is so high, but also from the temperature, from the acids in the water. So there's a lot of protection going on here, and this is the only way that we can get close enough to get pictures like this of the hydrothermal vents. Many plants, corals, animals live in these extremely harsh conditions. And we never thought 20 years ago that was possible. Now we know it is. A cold seep. In some ways, it's very, very similar. You've still got gases that are being pushed out of the surface of the planet, out of the ocean floor. The difference is it's cold. There's a very low temperature, very similar. It's not a temperature that it's not hot, so it's going to be cold. And it's things like natural gas, methane, hydrocarbons. Methane and natural gas are both hydrocarbons. The difference between a cold seep and a hydrothermal vent will shoot out gases and the acids and all of that very fast. It's going to very fast shoot that stuff out, but also hydrothermal vents will will die off pretty quickly. They won't stay there. It won't be a long-term ejection of material. So a cold seep, there it's going to be letting those gases out slower, but it's also going to go for a longer period of time. So methane seeps through the floor, and then the microbes in that area use the methane to create food, which all of the animals in those sunless areas provide. Now, this looks like the sun, right? Well, what it is you've got the submersible that you saw on the last page. They've got their lights on, and so it looks like it's lit up, but it's not. This is not the sun. This is artificial light created by the submersible. Just a final note about cold seeps. The natural gas that's underneath the ocean floor or leaking from the ocean floor, it's called, in the sentence there, it says, far more natural gas is sequestered on the ocean floor. Sequestered just means it's caught up, it's stored, it's not being let out underneath the ocean floor. The amount of natural gas that's under the ocean floor is more than all of the existing natural gas wells on Earth. That's how much natural gas is stored underneath the ocean floor. But you also have to remember the ocean makes up 3/4 of the Earth's surface. So of course there's going to be more natural gas there than there is underneath the 31% of Earth's surface that's above the ocean floor. So hydrothermal vents on the ocean floor, deep areas of the ocean floor. It's very hot, 752 degrees. That these nasty gases and chemicals come out of the ocean floor. Very hot. The microbes there use the oxygen in the water and the hydrocarbons that are given off to create food for themselves and for the animals around them. Cold seeps, no heat. That's why it's called a cold seep. Methane and natural gas is given off from the ocean floor. Again, the microbes use the oxygen in the water and the natural gas and the methanes to create food for themselves and the animals which survive around them. Hopefully you got a little bit from this hydrothermal vent and cold seep lesson. If you need anything or some things don't make sense, please get in touch with me. Hop on Microsoft Teams and I'll be happy to chat with you about it. If you saw anything that I need to correct, please also make a note and let me know. Thanks. Have a great day.